then is this saying that this was bad and it doubled?
You may have to start us here.
Okay. Yeah, he's not gonna be here.
Yeah, he's gonna be here.
Oh, he is.
They canceled this trip because
Oh, okay.
the virus. Whatever happens.
Is that used, kilowatts used in this?
Oh, there he
I
is.
think he did all of this, and I think he calculated that. These aren't the actual values.
Okay, so I was like, well, then no wonder what happened.
What you did. I guess we're gonna be talking about numbers now.
Oh, that's price per kilowatt.
How are you?
Assumption.
Travel was canceled. Yeah, I heard. Hey.
Okay, usually I do not gavel a council work session into order, so I will not do that today. Just a couple of points of order. For a work session, we typically do not allow public comment. What we're doing is we're basically getting information from the staff, and then we will be evaluating that and giving council direction, giving staff direction from council at the end of the work session. So if you have anything you would like to contribute, please see our city clerk after the work session, and she can take that information. With that being said, I believe we're going to have a presentation from Gans Garcia and Amy Foster.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So before we get into the actual looking at bills, comparing, I would like to summarize the electric rate study and give you like the background why we're here tonight. During the rate study, which started in 2017, the forecast assumed was as follows: 1% growth in electric, 3% increase in expenses or cost of services to maintain a 25% fund balance and remain revenue neutral. Also, the recommendation was to review the position in 2021, although the forecast was until 2023. The rate study directive was to cover the cost of services. That means that we make sure that our expenses are being covered. Then each class should be able to pay their own for the cost allocation, which means that each rate should be able to cover their own cost. Again, we maintain a 25% fund balance. One of the biggest directives was to simplify the rate structure. You will see we have one too many, in my opinion, and to eliminate step rates. So early in 2017, the following rate classes were approved: residential, commercial, which was divided in small, medium, large, school district 231, and interdepartmental, which is mainly the city. The classes eliminated and reclassified: residential with electric heat, commercial with electric heat, commercial without demand, commercial with demand, large commercial, and residential and commercial electric heat with separate meters. So why were the all electric residential class eliminated? And I think this is a lot of information, but hopefully it will tell us that the numbers were backing up the elimination. So like I mentioned, this is a 2017-2018 rate study. So we have this historical from 2015 to 2017. Then we use the budget 2018. So let's look at the historical 2015 to 2017. As you will see, the energy consumed in kilowatt hours for 2015 is 13,301,616. For 2015, what we received a revenue was 1,376,381. But what's required was 1,439,102. So the gap is a difference between what is required minus what we actually received. If you go by dollars per kilowatt hour, for 2715, we're about 0.1035. So that was the rate they were getting the energy. So the gap per kWh is about 0.0047. The required revenue per kilowatt hour was 0.1082. If you compare the rate or the required revenue per kilowatt hour to the dollar per kilowatt hour, there's a 5% difference. In 2020, all the electric was consolidated and a new rate was established, which is a 0.1038. If you compare that rate to the dollars per kilowatt hours, which is 1035 in this case, there's a 0.314% increase, which is very insignificant. If you go to the next couple of years, you will see on the bottom line, 2016, an increase of 2.5, 2017, a 1.167. Using the budget is 1.158. The test year uses all the analysis and rates to come up with a way of validating the structure. So with the test year, we have a 1.167% increase. The projector for 2020 was 1.34. Now, here is where things got distorted. We assume a 1% electric growth. If we look at the actual between 2018 and 2020, it's more like a 15% increase. Now we go by the same analysis for 2018, we have 60,937,479. The revenue collected was 1,624,433. The required revenue was 1,632,466. Now your gap is a lot bigger. Now you have a $208,033 gap. If you go to the next line, your dollars per kilowatt hour is 0.0959. If you compare that to 2015 and 2016, 2017, it's a lot less, which means that we were selling more energy at a discount revenue or rate.
Okay, so just a clarification, Gons, and required revenue is actually your cost basis. Is that not correct? That's the amount of revenue we need to be able to achieve in this rate classification to pay for the electricity.
Correct, but what we're trying to do here is we do a comparison between the residential all electric to what the residential no all electric was paying. Okay. So it's a comparison between the two classes.
All right, so this is the amount of the discount is what you're saying.
Correct. If you compare it to the standard residential.
All right, thank you.
So you go at 2019, the same thing happens. We have a high energy consumption. The revenues are less. The gap is even bigger. Now you're talking about $291,603. The dollar per kilowatt hour, that is the revenue we received, was 0.09112 compared to the standard residential rate, which is 0.1082. If you compare to 18 and 19, you see that your percent of required rate increase is 13% and 19%, which is very different from what the original projection was looking at. For 2020, it's about a 19% percent of required rate increase. And but that bottom line is going to be close to 13.830%. So basically, what this is telling us is our growth was more than 1%. I'd say was close to 15%. The total revenue collected was less because they were buying energy at a discount rate. So the gap got bigger. So by applying the new rates, the reason we're here is that now if you apply the 2020 rates, you will see the gap is even bigger if you compare to the historical trend. Any questions concerning this table?
Everybody got it?
I think, well, there's a couple of things that stick out here. We're talking about the gap. The gap is a 19% gap. Is that not correct?
2019, 2020, yes, sir.
It's a 19% gap.
That's based on the old rate and the discounted rate for all electric.
Correct. So can you give us a little bit of a background as to how that discount happened in the first place?
I think at this point I'll refer that to Amy because she was gonna give the information regarding the bills and.
I think that's important that we all kind of get a sense of where this.
But I can explain the best I can.
Yeah.
In 1999, the all electric rate came about, and back in those days, the city was buying energy from KCP&L, and we had a minimum we had to buy, let's say 10 megawatts. Buy it or use it or not, we will pay the 10 megawatts. So if you look at the consumption for those years, the actual consumption was below the 10 megawatts. So the city said, well, we're losing money here, or we're paying for energy that we're not using. So they developed the all electric rate to incentivize usage in the winter months. So they actually established a pretty discounted rate to cover that expense that we had to pay anyhow. So that goes back to 1999. That has been going on until we did the rate study in 2018. And it told us that the all electric was not paying their
Fair share.
excuse me?
Fair share.
Their fair share of the energy they were consuming.
Okay, so
And you can see that on the gap,
yeah, I see the gap.
especially in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah. So my question is this, Gons. If I know that the UAC knew about the all electric rate. I don't even know if the all electric customers knew about the all electric rate, which is, that was unfortunate. I know that as city council, the only time we heard about all electric rate was when we were having the presentation on the rate study, and I didn't make a connection between that and significant discounts that were being given to all electric customers. But this probably should have been phased out when we got past that minimum requirement.
I think there was an attempt back in 2013, I believe,
Around there, yeah.
to do away with the all electric, but that was never brought to the city council.
Was that when the EUB was being?
It's when the can got kicked.
Yeah, I understand.
So the idea of doing away with the all electric was there in 2012.
And it would have been a lot less of an impact then if it.
Yes, sir. But if you look,
Go ahead.
yeah, but if you look at the historical data, which was used for the rate study compared to the actual, looking at the historical, it makes sense to eliminate the all electric because the
Sure.
impact was very minimum.
Absolutely.
But now the energy usage has gone up, so the gap got bigger.
Okay.
So with that, I'll give the presentation to Amy.
One note I'm just going to put on this before we change this slide is that in the rate study too, we start out looking at this class as a whole and on a yearly basis, not on a monthly basis. So what I have tonight is actually to break it down to you more on an individual basis. One of the things that I will say came out of the rate subcommittee and the UAC was that to present on one individual basis, we couldn't do that, and so to step that back. So what I'm showing is just an assortment. I literally took an address that I knew where it was, like an apartment complex, picked a random address, and put it on the old rate to the new rate, and so that you could just see the varying impacts, because it isn't straight across the board as 13%, 14, 50, the numbers that we're seeing, that it is all based on the individuals, and size of house is different, type of furnace, temperature, all of those things. So just want to kind of put that out there, that when this number is all based on the total class of the all-electric residential customer this year, so. And then we're gonna break it down, like I said, to kind of show you a bigger impact. So the existing standard residential rate is where the classes were moved into. So throughout the rest of the rate study, that is what these customers were put into after it was decided that we would combine them. And so then their existing had been, during the summer months, they paid 11.09 cents per kilowatt hour. And then in the winter months, they paid, the first 800 was at 0.1109, and then down to 0.0485 cents per kilowatt hour. In the rate subcommittee and the utility, it was considered a priority to make them cover their cost. And so when we looked at the residential electric heater, also known as the all-electric, we looked at them, the 1,300 customers. When we saw that there was a shortfall, we determined that if we put them in the residential class, that shortfall would be absorbed by over 8,000 customers instead of 1,302. And so that was what lessened that impact. So going forward, we're gonna just pick these random customers. So this is a residential customer. I do not know the size of their household, what their thermostat set on, any of their personal details. But when we ran the numbers and what we're looking at, it shows that in 2019, based on their consumption to the new rate that went into effect in 2020, their percentage for the 12 months is 13% of an increase. So far, in just looking at the 2 months for 2020, it is showing a 41% increase, because these were the high months and it has been cold. And so based on that high consumption, we're seeing that impact because of that missing discount. Residential customer number 2, also a home, is 63%. For 2020. 2019 total is 25.86%. We did go through and calculate too what the threshold was, and so if you took them out and averaged them for the year and their average consumption was 901 kilowatt hours, that was the break-even point. And I know that sounds crazy low, but it does, we do have customers that have that, mostly in the apartment complexes, so you will see that as well. Customer 3 is actually a mobile home in Conestoga, and that percentage for 2020 was 50.25% of an increase, and in 2019 a 23.69% increase. Bethel Estates. So then I did break it out by apartment complex, because the majority of the customers that are all electric do live in apartment complexes. So Bethel Estates has 223 all electric customers, or all electric accounts. And so their percent so far in 2020 shows an increase for their winter of 36.43. And in 2019 overall is 15.92 based on the historical data of 2019. Madison Apartments is 24 apartments, and they actually saw the decrease. So they actually, in January and February, as you can see, they're very small users, is a negative 5.5%. In 2019, the overall was a negative 5%. Lincoln Lane Apartments, for the year 2020, it's 12.63%. 2019 is 5.39%. And they actually have 90 apartments. Nottingham Village, they have, sorry, I should have put that on here. $80 apartments, and they saw a decrease in January and February of a negative 2%. And their total over 2019 was 1.42 of an increase.
Is that just because of the fact that they have like more energy efficiency in those apartments?
Yeah, and size, possibly. They are new. Size, new windows. So it's always hard to tell. I mean, what they're using based on thermostats, how many inner apartments, what the layouts of them look like. But because this is where the majority of the people that are all electric are located, I felt it was important to break them out by these larger complexes to see what that impact looks like for them individually. And again, this is one random account that I selected that does have a customer in it. So it's not a vacant apartment. They did have a full at this time, so one tenant. So,
but it seems to me the larger the usage, the greater the impact.
yes,
And when I look at large users, apartments, I know they're a majority, but the apartments aren't seeing the big increases. It's the
individual
duplexes,
homeowners.
the Conestoga trailers, mobile homes are probably getting the biggest impact
Yes.
of all of them because of the fact that they're big users and those are not really efficient
Right.
homes.
Yes.
So, I mean, those are some of our lower income,
Yeah.
citizens that are getting hit with this.
Yeah.
So,
Can you go back to the residential example?
Uh-huh. Can I run through? I'm going to go Moonlight real quick, and then we'll run back to that one. Are you okay? Just because I'm on that slide, so I'll just tell you, because they're actually our largest apartment complex, and they actually have a total of 351 apartments. So in January and February, they've seen a 19.71% increase on their winter bills, but overall in the 2019, it was an increase of 4.17. And Horizon is about the same, so. So this is residential customer number 1. And so I would call them probably a lower all-electric user for a household. And residential customer number 2, a large customer, a large user.
and number 3 is the
Mobile
Conestoga,
home.
right? Yeah. See, this impact right here would be significant on someone who's on fixed income or lower income.
Can you talk about the PCA adjustment number? Has that? I have an example here, and did it change for everyone?
Didn't change at
Yes.
all.
So the PCA, it is a rolling average, a 12-month rolling average based on the adjustment of the fuel cost. So in your base rate, there's automatically 5.3 cents that's tied to power cost. And so the PCA that's on the bill is the adjustment. So we take the monthly cost and then we divide that out by all the kilowatt hours sold, and then times that by the kilowatt charge, the 5.3, and whatever the difference is, that's what the adjustment is.
We didn't change
And
that,
so
right?
the last few
Nothing,
months, it's
right.
been a positive, so it's been right around 0.008, I believe, 007 off the top of my head. I didn't really look at those. And I will tell you that's not calculated into these totals on either the 2019 or 2020 rates. And the reason for that is when you go back, quite a few of those months had a negative.
Okay.
And so to go back through and add that in, it was pretty much a wash. So I did not add that in these. That way, this is comparing kilowatt hours sold plus the service charge, which stayed the same.
Okay, so if it was negative last year, it was negative for everyone.
Right, yes.
And if
It
it's
is the
positive
same
this
for
year,
everyone,
it's positive
yes.
for everyone.
Everybody
Okay.
Yeah.
has the same number.
Yeah, so the variance in that is based on your kilowatt hours used. Randy, was that the one you wanted to see? Okay, okay. And Horizon Trails has, I was just gonna throw out how many apartments they had, because we discussed the other one. So they have approximately 200 apartments at Horizon Trails, just to make sure we give them their due credit there. Now, a slide that I don't actually have, that I threw together at the last minute for Councilman, was to talk about customers that we have who have gas, but also have our electricity, and what did their bills look like if we just took their gas bill and their electric portion of the bill and added them together. And so I passed that out, so that's what you guys have. And so I'll be honest, I randomly went around the city hall and asked people who lived in town if they would mind getting me their gas bills. I don't know what the consumption looks like. I just know this is what they paid for these months, and then what they paid the city of Gardner for their utilities, as an electric residential customer.
So these are all residential?
These are all residential customers inside the city limits. Yep.
Okay.
And just to kind of show that comparison, since the all electric doesn't have a gas service.
Can you go back then to your average residential slide? Not the high, not the low, but whatever average was, so we can compare your handout.
So this one is the low. So
This is close to number 2 on this sheet.
That's the high, correct?
yes. And so
This is close to number 4 then.
And again, I kind of explained earlier that I have none of the details about their homes, or they haven't invited me over, I guess.
I know I checked my average gas bill's $60 to $66. We're on that monthly average, so sometimes we don't use as much, but
Yeah, mine was 72.
so that's
Yeah, ours is on average of 65.
right. So that's something that's got to be taken into consideration when we're looking at folks who have all electric. If you added if they're in that $60 to $100 range for what they would be spending on gas, is that increase similar?
There's some that are
Well, I know there's some that are
way out of line.
right, but it's dependent on usage too. So
Yeah, but usage a lot of times has more to do with lack of energy efficiency in the home than it does with actual consumption.
well, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's not our problem.
I can tell you from being on the rates subcommittee
You can't talk during the meeting.
years and years ago, right? 2011, 12, 13, when some of us wanted to make this change. You've got two issues here. Not only do you have where that rate wasn't recouping the actual expenses that would be allocated to it, but it was also a declining block, right? So you paid 11 cents and then you went down to 4 cents. There's really not a whole lot of incentive to not use more energy,
Right.
right? And that was something else that we talked about over the last decade. To
Well, that was the whole point of it. The
move
whole point
to
was to encourage more energy use.
correct. Well, 20 years
years
ago.
Yes, I know that,
but not in the last 10.
I agree.
So we want to be more energy efficient
Yes.
and use less. Well, to do that, you also have to either be flat or have a disincentive to using more.
Gradually.
And in this case, by raising that rate up, it affects them a lot, these particular customers, in those particular months, because it's a large jump for those months. So, I mean, what all are we talking about here? Because I've got a whole lot of points to go over, so. Carry on.
So can I throw out real quick, and I have some commercial, so I don't know if we want to talk about the residential side of it before. I'll just take your directive. But if we want to talk about the residential side, I would just like to comment on utility billing has taken a lot of calls, and we've worked with a lot of customers. The majority of the initial calls, of course, were negative. We've done a lot of bill analysis for these customers that have called us. We've worked on long-term payment plans. I would say the longest one I've issued, which they did have a large bill, was a 6-month. That I did give them a 6-month payment option where they're making installments based on these bills through their summer months without penalty. Some of which they were concerned about that too, that, you know, not knowing what the summer was going to look like, how those bills would be impacted, but we told them we would continue to work with them, just communication. Another thing we've done is look at if they qualified. Right now there's a federal program called LEAP for a low-income energy agency that offers utility assistance one time a year. It's a federal grant, and so we worked with customers who had never heard of that to fill out those applications and help them with that. Multi-service, we've sent people to multi-service to see if they could assist and absorb part of this impact as well. One of the things that was brought up is budget billing, so that we automatically put them back, look at January, February, and revert them back and start a budget bill plan where they pay the same amount every month rolling forward. Currently, our budget billing does have some qualification standards that maybe we could look at reducing those qualifications for these customers if that's something you'd be interested in. Another thing, Gons actually spoke with the gentleman who offers energy assessments for residential homes at no expense. So the expense comes, so if you want to hire him to make improvements, then that's where his expense comes from, but he would not charge the city if we work through them to have those kind of assessments done on their home. Or just one-on-one customer contact for conservation methods. We've helped someone apply for a grant for winterization based on where her thermostat was. She felt like she was always cold, and so based on these bills, we've went out, met with her in the field, talked to her about how her electric meter works, what's pulling, did breaker test. So we've tried to provide a customer service to help them look at that usage and see if there's ways to help with that. So I just wanted to kind of kick that out there, and then for the residential side. Revert back to, so.
Anything else?
So unless you want to talk about commercial customers right now, too.
Do we want to address residential now and then, or do you want to wait until after the commercial presentation?
That's up to you.
Yeah, I thought we were just talking about residential.
We're discussing residential now?
Yep.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss commercial at all?
I didn't know, did we have any commercial
Yes.
customers complain?
Yes,
They changed classifications as well to small, medium.
largely.
Yep.
Up to 66%.
Yeah. This is significant
I
impact.
think we focus on the residential right now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go to questions then. I'm assuming you have some, or comments.
I've got a lot of comments like usual. Okay, so
Of course.
first things
You
first.
were on the race list.
So I'm gonna lay this out as I see it. For everybody on a governing body, so that includes us, the UAC, as far as committees, everybody has to be aware of what's being voted on. I know we get a lot of stuff, but we've got to be proactive on making sure everything's good. And that's not necessarily completely directed at this group, but this is essentially the can being kicked for over a decade, okay? And nobody wants to raise rates. So here we are dealing with the brunt of that, okay? So that's the soapbox on that. Next is the one that nobody's gonna like to hear, and that's the residents. So people query, discuss, complain on social media, but don't come to city council meetings. I'm glad to see as many people here as there are. Or UAC meetings. I mean, I was on the UAC for 7 years, and I could probably count the number of people that attended at less than a dozen in that entire time. Heck, our YouTube channel for city council, or for the city, sorry, only has 215 subscribers for the entire city. And then the work session that we did for this, the specific issue in January last year, had 95 views, and I can tell you I'm 3 of those. And then when we voted on it later that evening, there's 75 views. So if people aren't engaged, they don't know what's happening, and it will hit your finances, okay? So, and that's, I can tell you that's the reason that a lot of people even run for a committee. We have an opening on the UAC right now, or not run for, try to be appointed, or run for city council. But we literally delayed this a year, okay? And you have to put this in perspective. So city council approved a contract 3.5 years ago to start this rate study. And then it took 2 1/3 years for the rate study to come to fruition to where we voted on it. And here we are a year later, and it's only valid for 5 years. Okay? We're over halfway through this thing, and we haven't even implemented it. Okay? That's how difficult rates are with electric. So then, what that leads me to is, from the city's perspective, we have to do better whenever we make a change with a rate, or as we talked about with the fees that we didn't change, but we talked about codifying last meeting. Those have to be more identifiable to the public. So my suggestion is anytime we have a text change, so rates, fees, etc., or to the land development code, procedures, that's redlined and always in the packet so that anybody can download it anytime and see it, okay? I recommend the city encourage the public through every email, text, social media, mailing to go back to the website. And then that means the website has to have the latest up-to-date information at all times. Okay? One of the things on the website is it talks about the 2% reduction. It does not talk about all electric classification going away and what that may mean to you. There's no calculator for you. If you are looking for the information, you are having trouble finding it. Okay? So one thing that I think we should look at there then is we should have reminders anytime we delay an implementation. I think, Amy, we could have an offline conversation or some other time at looking at the billing system to see if we could get information in there. I know it's difficult for what we are allotted for the text there, what it would cost, what it would, if it makes sense to change billing systems, etc., for having the ability to put something in there where we could say, hey, your bill may be changing, so that people would have an opportunity to see that, okay? If we delay an implementation of any sort, the reason we delayed it is so that everybody could get acclimated to it. And here we are, no acclimation, right? It defeats the whole purpose. All we do is waste a year. So, number one, we need to, as a body, I think, not favor implementation delays. We just have to think of how to mitigate the effect. That being said, I think because of this can was kicked and how the problem that was solved with this all-electric rate was not the right way to go about it. Blows my mind, but that was 20 years ago. So going forward, I think all incentives should be scrutinized closely, but also that they should have a time window, a calendar window when they expire. or something you're signing on to so that it is clear what the intent of this is and when it will expire. I mean, if you have a tax abatement, you know it's 10 years or whatever we agree to, right? This, nobody knew when this incentive was going to end. So as far as I know, we should do this forever. All right, so that's my soapbox. So originally I was skeptical of this delayed implementation, asked about it in the meeting. And while I think some of the residents aren't doing their due diligence, just because nobody's seeing this, I do believe that I believe there would be a lot of them that would have came in here or called us or emailed us had they known. Okay, I mean, this room is full tonight compared to normal, right? So I think there's only one choice for these all-electric customers, and it's at their discretion. But I think you absolutely put them on the EPP, equal payment plan, so that you don't have a step function, you have a smoothing of it. And then also we allow them, a time window, you mentioned 6 months, to back into this. I think that should be open to all of them. There was no intention of the step function for anybody. And rate adjustments are also supposed to be revenue neutral, which was the goal. And to anyone that thinks, oh, we slammed all electric, well, yes. But as the slide that Gons did initially, you're seeing how bad it's getting and how far it will get worse, right? Instead of being 30,000 short, it's 230,000 short, or 291 in 2019. It's going to be 300,000 in 2020. It's only going to get worse. Okay, so we needed to take care of this now. Should have done a long time ago.
Could you go forward to the step, the all electric rate classifications for kilowatt hours? I think it's the next slide. I've got right here. So where did this 0.0485 come from? Is that a flat rate from 20 years ago?
And then if
It
we've
is.
had increases, they've just increased that by the percent.
Wow.
Yes.
Guess what the city's rate, the rate that's not supposed to make any money at all, was 2 years ago?
0.07.
5.65.
Yep.
So the rate that makes no money, isn't spread out anywhere, was
Higher. than
higher.
that. Yep, it is.
Right?
It's lower than our cost.
It's never been updated to match the times.
Yeah. That's so our cost of getting electricity is actually accelerated faster than that 800 plus kilowatt rate on a daily basis.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
You're saying it's almost 0.6 now, right? 0.06?
no, their rate now is the same as all of ours,
No, but
10.38.
No, but I'm saying that the residential electric until December 31st of 2019
Yes.
was 0.0485. Our cost to acquire the electricity was at 0.06.
No, it's not that simple.
Okay. I know
Electric
it's
rates
not.
are.
I'm trying to
No, so what
boil it
happens
down
is,
here.
like Amy brought up, you take the entire budget for the whole year,
Yep.
and that gets then rolled into how do we keep this neutral next year? Okay,
Yep.
we're not trying to make any money. You put in your assumptions, you put in your capital improvement projects, you put in everything for your 5 years, right? We're not looking 12 years out.
Yep.
And you say, here's what it's going to take to make, to keep this utility running, okay? And since it's government, we're trying not to make money, okay?
Yep.
Then you come into your rate classifications and you say, all right, this one, so there's 8,000-ish customers, including commercial. No, that's just residential, sorry.
Residential.
But 1,300 of them are all electric, right? So that rate was being subsidized by
Yes.
those other 6,700.
I agree.
So, and actually, then it gets even more complicated because you had the commercial and we made changes there, losing demand, everything else. So what happens is you unroll it down to here's each kilowatt, and then you reallocate it to that group. And then you say, okay, what would it take to make this group whole without drastically changing the world? And then you look at that across the board, and then that's how, when it's all said and done, the new residential rate was a 2% deduction,
Correct.
right? So it's very complicated. That's why it always takes forever to do. But this is a problem that's been there forever and was going to continue to be a problem and needed changed. So I don't have a problem with the rate change. And I didn't even have, I mean, I had a concern, but I didn't have a objection to delaying it a year, even though, right, we're already in 3 years. But I did have a problem with how they didn't know about it.
Yeah, right.
And that's the
That's
point of the
the biggest-
year.
That's the
right?
biggest problem.
Because then you could have looked at your future year, and it, you know, if you used $1,500 or $1,500 kilowatt hours, which is a little bit on the low side, it made my math easy. That's $178.07 increase for the year.
Yes.
Okay, that's $15 a month. So, and you know, if you knew about that, you looked at it historically, all these people were aware, and then you looked at it forward and said, hey Amy, I want on the EAPP and I want to pay an extra $15 a month. Not only would they be whole now, but then their bill would be the same going forward. You know, give or take some minor changes.
So my question is this, I appreciate that. My question is this, Amy. We're already working with budget billing on some people with the, you know, even payment plan, correct?
Yes.
We are already working with them on some utility assistance through grant funding as well as potentially through multi-service and other agencies.
Correct.
We are already working with them for mitigation and 6 months repayment on some of these larger bills in the winter, knowing that in the summer they're gonna drop.
Right.
Okay? So my question is this, what do we have to change other than do those things? I mean, we have to remove the requirements or the criteria for EPP or budget bill.
Yes.
So that would be the one thing we'd have to talk about, correct?
The requirement you're talking about is if you've been late.
Yes, late 12
lateness.
months, if they haven't been here a full 12 months.
Yeah.
And so they're not really comparing to last year so much, but they're comparing to November and December's
Correct.
bills because they were using the same consumption in November and December, but when January and February hit, it doubled for some people and up,
Yes, it did.
and 16%. And so as soon as they got that bill too, you know, that's when the concern came. So even if they weren't here last year, because we do have a 12-month requirement, that we would like to allow them that too, if that's.
I think it'd be okay to waive the 12-month requirement for this
Same
year.
here.
Yeah, so let's get on that on the agenda then for the next
That's
meeting.
what we're looking to do, Randy.
And I do not think that's an ordinance.
I don't think
I
it is either.
believe that's an internal policy that you guys voted
I think
on,
if we get it.
and I can double
consensus-
check on that. So I do have one here if you guys want to look at it, but I believe that was in-house policy that you
It's an
guys set.
administrative action, then I would say we just go on ahead and implement that.
Okay,
Unless
If we can-
anybody else
yeah.
has a
No, I
has a
think that's fine,
disagreement.
and I highly recommend the EPP to everybody who, so tell all your friends.
Yeah.
Equal payment plan,
Now-
it'll help smooth it.
For the first couple of months where those bills were really, really high and they paid that higher bill,
we can go back, so it would be where they need to.
they would have a credit balance then,
Right,
essentially.
so what we would do is we'll have to go back through those people that's their option that they would want to do and do what's called a cancel bill and rebuild them on the budget amount.
Okay,
And so just so we can include those higher bills for them, and then that should lower their payments for the next months going forward.
correct.
And I will tell you, so March, cycle 1 bills have already gone and cycle 2 are headed out. And so now we're talking 3.
Is there a possibility that we can put out some sort of a general notice to those all-electric homes?
I'm pretty sure the city administrator sent out a letter to them, since obviously this is not getting to them.
So because this meeting was set up, we're holding that letter so that we can add those options. Depending on what
Good.
happened tonight,
That's great.
those letters have not gone out.
I like the equal pay, but I didn't want it just to be, if you found out about it, you could maybe come
Right,
and
that's what I was
ask.
just
I'd
gonna
like
say.
it, they all know.
Get proactive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you
so
for
that we
holding that
send that letter out and.
talked about that, just for this.
Great,
Yeah.
that's wonderful, thank you very much.
So that'll go to all 1,302 customers.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have a database set up already, a form letter pretty well set up, so we can add these options from tonight and hopefully get those printed out and mailed out by, what is today, Monday, Tuesday? I would say by Wednesday.
Well, it sounds like utilities have already been doing a significant job of working with customers that have called in and getting them some relief.
Yeah,
So,
it has been a horrible impact for them. And one, we did not anticipate that it would look like this, or I feel like it was combined, and so in so many things that were discussed that we just dropped the ball on them because they were combined, thought it was a small impact, that we really, I'll be honest, focused on the commercial side because it was talked about in great length, especially at the UAC, and was a big decision to make. And so I think, yes, they got less kind of in the dust because the impact didn't seem as big, that it didn't stick out kind of like some of the other stuff did. So, and we combined it, and the rest of the rate study went on for a year, and then when those bills went out, we were reminded as well, and that the impact looks so different based on the consumption this year. We're very seasonal, so.
yeah, and the problem is those rate changes went into effect in the middle of winter, which exacerbated it because those were winter
Yeah,
rates.
July would have been a good time, but then you have the water. And so some of them are also impacted with water. I will say Conestoga, because a lot of times they leave water dripping. So that 3.7% rate increase on top of that, plus the all-electric homes, yeah, some of those bills are mortgage payments. To just put that out there, that they're the same as their mortgage payments or more. So yeah, it's been
And
a
we're
big
working
pressure.
with them on like doing, you said the energy
Yes,
efficiency.
the ones that have contacted us, yes, we have been. I will say we've been very busy, but I'm sure we haven't heard from everyone or been able to offer everything. So, but still working on that. So
I have some thoughts.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't have it for everyone out there, but I did print off. Someone sent me their January and February bills for 19 and for 20, and they live in residential neighborhood, all electric. They have a heat pump for their heat. First, a quick question. So you're saying the summer is less. I mean, I assume AC is running all summer, isn't that?
But their rate changed, so it used to be 11.09, and now it's gonna be the 10.38.
Yeah.
So for the same amount of
Okay.
usage,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a discount.
They didn't get that
and the
marginal discount.
800 kilowatt hours in the winter is at the discounted
see.
rate.
Yeah.
But because it's been so cold, that above 800 was so high. I think when we looked back through the historical data, there was it 14% of 2018 were under 800 kilowatts. And then the rest were in the next bracket, which was 1,600 kilowatts. And so, but this year, they have been closer to the 2 and above.
Okay. Well, this, you can see this, I mean, I'm not gonna go into their efficiency or whatever, but I assume you can see that they were at 3,200 in 19, and then 2,700 in January of 20, and then 37 and 30. Yeah, they keep their heat low. You know, anyway, it's just it's a regular size house. But for one thing, I can say that the PCA number went from a negative last year to a positive this year. So there's a $50 difference in the bills. If you look at the negative 36 to the positive 20, it's like $56 difference. So right there could be some of the expense that's increased the bills. But even if you take that out, if you looked at the average, it went from 0.06 to 0.10, just on my back of the napkin figures. Is that?
That sounds about right, because you know the first 800 are at the 0.11,
Right.
and then you had the next everything else at 0.04 ish, right? So depending on your number, of course,
Right.
yeah, that's a good average.
So, but so that's almost, I mean, 80% more, whatever the number is, difference on, when you look at it overall. And I agree with all your points. I'm not so much in agreement that, citizens need to be attending them. That's a lot to ask, I think, for people to be always, every meeting paying attention. I mean, I think that's more our responsibility when things like that, and you kind of alluded to that as well. I do think that's our responsibility to get that word out. So whether it's a flyer in the bill or whatever the case may be.
And I will ask, because we used to do utility billing inserts, and then it kind of came back that they weren't being read and the expense of them, that we stopped them. But maybe that's something that, yeah,
Or just
if you're
I don't know
interested,
if
that
we
on
actually
certain,
know
that
that.
we set a parameter of what we want to add in, only special things maybe, so then when they know there's something in the bill to pay attention to it. Cause I'll be honest, I open my bills a lot of time and the stuff goes in the recycle bin, or I get them online now, I don't even get them in the mail. And so to figure out what you would like to see in those and what becomes an insert, I guess,
And I think
so
this is a
for
more of
rate
a
structure.
special, I mean, this is
Yeah,
obviously.
so,
I wouldn't add the utility billing insert back in because it was unnecessary most of the time. And since we did delay this a year, I think we had opportunity in the newsletter, right? We could have hit it 4 times and brought up, hey, check your usage, you may be affected, note, all electric, be on a lookout, but it should have said everybody, right? I mean, commercial clients as well. So, yeah,
Right.
it definitely could have been better emphasized.
Well, and to be fair, I think, I was in every single one of those meetings, not at the rate study meetings, but I was in every single one of the meetings that we were discussing this rate study. And, we knew that all electric was going away. We did not know the material impact of that change. So if we didn't know it, how would the general public have known about it?
Well,
and
the
I'll be
general
honest, we
public
did think
would
it
have
would
known
be
it
much
from-
less, so.
From the
I
UAC
understand.
meeting, not from our meeting.
Yeah, again, how many people go to UAC?
Well, that's my
meetings?
point.
Virtually nobody.
Well,
That
I
was my
was
point.
general public when that happened.
Yeah.
I'm not an electric resident, but I don't know that and I follow along pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I knew.
Yeah. So I mean, and I understand this was missed. I mean,
Yes.
I think we can all agree it was missed.
Yeah.
Now we're working with the customers, correct? We'll be working with all the customers that call and give us the ability to work with them. Okay, because there is a consent action here on the part of the homeowner to get onto things like EPP, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably make that clear in the letter.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
because what we're saying here obviously doesn't always
You
get
have
out.
to opt
So
in.
You have to
You
opt
cannot-
into the EPP and you need to call the electric utility, or the utility department about this.
Yeah.
So 2 more things. 2 more, yes. So I personally, I mean, because of the suddenness of it, even if it's not, everyone's different on how much extra it's going to be. I would almost be in favor of still a stepped implementation percent. I agree that yes, that rate should be the same for everyone, but because it was so sudden, and I've seen emails where people said, they went with an all-electric house because they were told there's a discount. They could have installed different things. So in some ways, I feel like we have a responsibility in that, and maybe we can step this rate. And we can talk about that, but the other thing I was going to talk about was the late fee. And I brought it up before. A 10% late fee seems high. I mean, I don't know too many other places that have 10% if you're a couple days late. I know that's off the subject a little bit, but speaking of
Might as well
billing,
bring it up. We're here.
we're here. So that's where I'm at, and I may be alone in that, but I would be more in favor of a stepped rate, and I appreciate all the even pay billing and all that stuff as well, but
So Dr. Todd, how long would you recommend the rate be stepped?
I mean, even if it
Like
was
6
just,
months?
yeah, I mean, you could 6 months or over the next year, I mean, just kind of,
The problem is and I'm just gonna tell you, we're gonna be back here in 6 months. Somebody's not gonna hear about it, somebody's gonna be,
well,
we need to just bite the bullet and
We're already
I
3.5
know we
years
didn't
in.
we didn't do a good job of telling
3.5
everybody.
years
kind
in,
of-
from the city's perspective, but not from,
Yeah, that's the perspective I'm trying to take, is if I were on the receiving end of this, I would want the help that we've talked about, and I would be interested in some sort of gradual lead up to this so that I could get my house in order versus being hit with, 50, 60% more than what I'm normally budgeted for.
Doing the things we talked about
That
will
is
give
fixing
you
it.
that.
Yeah.
That's giving you the lead in and getting you back to where you're gonna be square.
Because if we step it, there's no reason to go on the PPP now and all that other stuff because
That'd be a
bill's just gonna come
condition of
back.
the step is what I heard.
In addition,
No, a condition to the step is what I understood.
I don't think Todd said that.
well, no, I mean, I'm saying you can do both, I guess.
Oh, okay.
That's
And
what I was
something
kind of
else too is when you're talking about 6 months, so after the winter months, their rate per kilowatt hour is going down versus what they were paying last year. Just to throw that out there. So if you're talking a 6-month period, you're turning around and putting it right back on when their winter bills start again. So during the summer months, that it's actually discounted, and for them, based on their consumption and how they were set up, you're going from 11.09 cents to the 10.38. So that reduction is more than the 2% based on the consumption. And so again, if you take it away and then you put it back on in 6 months, you're doing it right again in the winter months. Just to
Which will also be after you add the water. And furthermore, we'd have to change that with an ordinance because the rates are set what they are. So you'd have to then come back and say, we're delaying those till whenever. And on top of that, we're already seeing how much it's growing and differing even more so than it was before.
get worse.
So the longer we do this, then the next study we do, which will be starting almost immediately,
You're gonna be skewed.
it's going to be even more off, and then you'll have a bigger step potentially at that time, which, you know,
I like the step. I don't know, I think we're maybe too far gone this time. I mean, I hate to say that, but maybe in future we need to phase it in
Well,
by steps.
we know a
with
lot of things we've
stipends,
gotta
yeah.
change going forward, and one of those things is actually more proactive communication.
Yes.
We did not have that this time around, and, if we can work with them on EPP, work with them on budget bill, work with them on utility assistance, I think that should help to alleviate a lot of the issues that are happening right now, because we do know that the summer bills are going to be smaller, and they're going to be discounted relative to, usage, exactly.
Dr. Todd brought up the late fees. What percentage of customers that are here tonight and or affected are in the late fee category?
I think we're going to leave them out specifically. I mean,
yeah. Yeah,
I think you
that's a
want to say in
raise your hand up front.
generalities.
I will be honest,
Yeah.
I do not know.
Well, I'm just wondering, he brought up late fees, and I didn't know if suspending would have
We're
any.
waiving those.
Yes.
We are.
So can we go
Up to
back
six-
and
up to
so can
Okay,
we
I
go
didn't
back
hear
and
that.
do that on
Yeah.
all electric customers?
Yes.
Just straight across
Okay.
the board, we'll remove all
Okay.
all
Yeah,
penalties?
that's what
Yeah,
Amy
that
talked
would be
about.
fair.
Okay, so we're all good with that, okay?
So we're gonna waive
Yeah,
late
because there's
fees.
no
Okay.
point for them to have to see this.
Okay, I know the ones that we've done payment plans on and that we have, but so those that have not contacted us, we will go back, run the reports, go in, remove all penalties that have been assessed to all electric customers starting in
Thank you.
with the January billing,
Yeah.
okay?
But I'd also like to continue that, though. I still think the 10% rate is pretty steep. I mean,
Do you have a number that other people use, or?
I don't. But
We can, so staff initiative to
just
look at
ask
that,
them,
okay?
look at the
yeah.
best known method
Yeah,
on
we
that.
can look
Because we
at
should probably
investor-owned
look at that for
utilities
budget,
versus other
too.
municipalities.
Before
10%
budget.
does seem a little draconian. I mean, when you've got like a $350 bill, and then you get hit with a $35+
I don't know if you write a $6 check and it bounces and you get a $30 late fee.
That's
Or,
true,
you know,
but we
insufficient
are
funds.
not trying to make money on our utilities.
Well, we're not trying to make money on a late fee either. It's discouraging not paying on time.
Well, correct. And
But you know,
it
you're
shouldn't
probably
be,
getting-
and it shouldn't be tied to the amount that you owe. That's the problem.
I mean,
You
it
want
could
a
be
flat fee?
It could be
Yeah.
stepped.
Numbers are in the
We could do a
budget
flat
too,
fee.
right?
take a look at it.
Yeah.
Late fees are in the budget,
$50 flat
right?
fee?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
that's where I was
But they
getting
are
at.
divided among water and sewer? Okay, I'm pretty sure they are, but. So we can do some research on penalties and then bring that back as a council
That'd be great.
discussion. Does that
Okay.
sound okay on penalties overall in
Let's
general?
have
10%?
that for a presentation. Can we do that presentation at the next meeting? To list all the things that we're discussing this evening in terms of steps that we're gonna take with all electric
Oh, for all
customers.
electric residential, okay. But the
Yes.
10% penalty across the board that's set by ordinance will not be
That
at the
is-
next meeting?
That.
We'll take
we-
us some
Why do you need
research.
to bring it back?
No, I'm saying she's gonna do a presentation on that, but I mean, not that next meeting.
Why do we need to have a presentation? We're having the presentation right now.
Yeah.
Not on the 10% late fee.
No,
I'd like to know, like,
Oh, I
Right.
don't know that I can have that ready by the
I can
16th.
put that information in the Friday minute memo, and then if it garners the consensus to revisit it,
as an agenda item?
That's fine.
Okay, because that is an ordinance, the 10%
That
penalty.
is, that would,
so.
that would be an ordinance change.
You said all the stuff. And that's what
No,
I'm
no,
saying.
no, I'm saying that that information we could package into a presentation for the next meeting, saying this is what council's consensus is for the consumption of those who are out in
For
the
the all-electric.
ether.
No, all of that's done now.
We're doing
All
that
we need
now.
to do is discuss the 10%
We don't
possibly
need to do
later.
next Monday, do a
We need to give you
rehash.
guys immediate attention.
I agree.
Yeah.
So all this
No, we are
just needs
giving
to
them, we are giving them the
Agreed.
Run with
minimum.
this same.
Okay.
Get her done.
All right, so, I feel like I'm losing control of this meeting, guys, stop. Okay, so the consensus here, just to recap, is that we will be offering EPP to all who request it.
And we're gonna communicate that to all
Yes.
1,302.
It will
Yes,
be
that's
added
in
to the letter.
That's in a letter,
Okay.
yes. We're going to waive all penalties,
Waive all
fees, and other assessments that have happened as a result of these higher bills. We're going to work with those who are lower income and fixed income to get some relief through either grant programs or through assistance that have or the programs that have assistance associated with them. And we will be working with them to try to, if they have a big bill and they want to
To look at
extend
energy
those
assessments
payments
too.
for up to 6 months. I think we had talked about that too.
Yes,
To clarify, that's for all electric only.
All electric
Yeah.
only?
Except for the grant, that could apply to anybody.
Correct,
yes.
yes.
And so the longer term payment plans so that's the more 6 months where they don't want to pay the equal amount, they just want to pay an installment based on what they owe now. And are we okay with the energy assessment offering?
Absolutely.
So I don't think we could
We
lose
should be
anything on it,
encouraging
and-
energy
yeah.
efficiency anyway,
Okay.
regardless. I think that energy
So-
assessment offering should be.
The city's not paying for it, and we have, I think, if we're gonna list, are we gonna list that person on the website? Because
Can we do that?
I think if we're
I'm
gonna do
gonna
that, we
refer that
need
one
to
to
tell
Collins. I'm not
everybody in the
like-
community they have an
Yep.
equal opportunity to put themselves, that's,
Exactly.
holds that title. I don't
Yeah.
think we should be saying, go to this guy, when there's 12 others over here that can do the same job.
Right now, I have the name of one person. KMEA sent me 2 additional resources, so
Okay,
I can
I
put
think we
whatever,
That'd be great.
as many as I have.
Yeah, open it up to anybody who's
Anybody?
an energy
Okay.
auditor.
because
Number
obviously,
one, there might be more than one person can handle, and two, I don't
Yeah.
think we should be focusing business to one person.
Okay, perfect.
yeah. Because obviously the lower the usage amount, the less of an impact. So
Right.
the
Yeah,
important thing is to
year-round.
try to lower usage.
Perfect. Okay, and we will add that all to the letter, and I should be able to get you that by tomorrow afternoon, just that final, and so we can get that taken care of and get that out, if we have the consensus.
I think we have consensus
Okay.
Consensus.
on all those steps.
Okay, so any more questions on residential? Because I do think since we're all here, if we could just discuss commercial too.
need to as well.
So
They had a
I want
much
to sneak
greater
out of here
impact.
without covering that too.
All right,
Okay. So, commercial old rates. This is one that we did talk about, but again, based on consumption numbers, their impacts have been much larger as well. So we have heard from some of our commercial all-electric customers, and I will say we did send them all letters. Actually, every commercial business in town got a letter because we changed the way we billed them altogether. Plus, we changed the way we billed their water. So we took each individual customer, so 420 some, and put them into classes of what their rate structures would look like and sent them individualized letters. They are calling now based on the impact because their usage has also changed with this winter. But the difference with them is they are not going to see any savings during the summer because they were getting a winter break, I would say a discounted rate all year. And so they have asked for consideration as well. I actually heard from 2 of them this week, or well, Friday, I guess I would call that, so that's not really this week, but so I just thought we should run past it because this is what the impacts look like for what they're using. And this is what was presented at the UAC and the City Council. The assumption was that they were being subsidized up to close to 66% through the rate study. And so some of these customers' winter bills, because their usage is higher in the winter, we've seen go from this 5,567 to the 10,000 in one bill. So that is not this customer, but they called me today, and their consumption is right. And so we talked to them about possibly doing an energy assessment with them too to figure out how to control their demand, because their demand charge was 50% less than what they're being billed today as a large customer. And so this commercial customer, they have seen an impact of $4,623 for the year if they continue the same usage that they used in 2017. This one is $26,000 over the year. So that's probably the one that first saw that 5 to 11 that I heard from today. And this one was $5,270 for the year based on the new rates that they're on. Each one of them was very different when we went through the rate study because of the different rate classes that we had, because we had so many. And they actually got to pick which class they were on. So somebody who had a high demand but a lower kilowatt hour usage could pick to pay no demand charge. So they were paying a kilowatt hour charge and could be very inefficient. And so now every commercial customer pays that demand charge. And so a lot of them are learning what demand is about. And so we've had a lot of those conversations about trying to kind of distribute the load so that it's not all peaking at that first minute when they come in and open the doors in the morning. They're turning everything on in that 15-minute interval. So we've talked to them about that, but some of them, the impact is so big that they feel like we need to do more. And looking at them, yeah, they're scary large too. So I just wanted to address that since we were here tonight, that they may be reaching out to you as well. And so that since we're here, maybe we could go ahead and discuss them and what you would like to see with them.
Amy, do we have
And we can offer them the same things that we offer our residential customer. I feel like the energy assessments may be a little bit more specialized. I will tell you, it's also for us to go out and troubleshoot, and when I say us, I'm talking utility billing meter reader technician staff. We're probably not quite as educated as Gonza's folks. And I'm not really sure what they can offer from an employee side of a city employee. But so maybe the energy assessments could help them to figure out where some of maybe their loss would be. But I'm not 100% sure that that doesn't come at an expense, because it is a much larger service and a more detailed assessment, because you're talking about production equipment, different lighting, bigger facilities, different structures, period. So
Yeah, I think the same things are offered that we did with.
Yeah, it'd be the best option.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent upon the large commercial customers to perform their own study in order to identify in-house where they can make changes.
Okay.
Whether it be lights that come on based on somebody in the space, or charging forklifts, at various times throughout the day. Interior, exterior lighting that's dusted on, those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Well, and as you mentioned, these customers we did have we talked with. And,
Yes.
Yeah. We knew about the impact of those well in advance.
Right.
Yes.
This is not
a surprise to them, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, everything
yeah.
was the same time
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah, they knew their,
Yeah.
their rates were going up. I think that, the
Yes.
magnitude by which those rates were going up didn't really hit until they actually got
Got the
their bills.
bills, right.
But even in the summer, as you said, they were getting a year-round discounted rate, so it's gonna hit them every month.
Yes,
It
so they
doesn't-
will not see a break in the summer.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, they, even with a budget payment plan, they're still gonna see an impact, a significant impact.
And we do not allow commercial businesses to have budget billing, the level pay. But if that's something you would like to offer them, we can do that. Again, I just know that they are also calling, and especially this last bill that they just got. I got to, like I said, on Friday. And yeah, in looking at their bills, it's startling. And so I do know that one of them today told me they will be emailing you. They couldn't be here tonight. And so you will be hearing from them. So I just thought while we're here to bring it out there and make sure that we just touch base on that too. And if you want to offer them those programs as well.
Yeah,
I
but
think they can do the EPP themselves. I mean, it's a business. They're already mitigating when they purchase this and that and everything else anyway for their business. This would be no different of, you know, something else that's an asset that you're maintaining or an inventory, right? You can look at this over your time frame and manage it. It's businesses that make sense to do themselves, whereas, you know, residents, this is a service we can provide to them easily. That is something that, you know, they're not managing themselves.
So you're saying no?
I'm saying no to the EPP. I mean, it already is that way. Plus, if you looked at, you know, those slides, a whole lot of those months do not vary drastically from month to month.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
I understand
they
the
don't,
numbers
yeah.
are bigger, but that's, if you take away here's what it is, nothing really changed.
yeah,
Okay.
well, you're gonna have demand, especially if you're a manufacturing business, you're gonna have demand year-round anyway.
Yes.
But my question is this, from the standpoint of the discount itself, and we've talked about the discount that we've had with the different rate classifications for commercial. We had talked about an average increase of about 38% on commercial across the board.
Yes.
Obviously, there's some, I mean, we're looking at a couple here that were like almost double.
Yes.
Again, it's because of the scope of the usage. Higher usage customers get dinged harder, a lot harder. Those higher usage customers are also our biggest businesses in town. So, I guess the question is, for those businesses, and you know, I think we know who they are. What can be? There's nothing we can do to help to mitigate some of that.
What would you do?
Well,
Yeah, let's hear your suggestions.
well,
I mean, here's the kicker. This is my point
It's gonna
earlier
double, yeah.
about people being engaged, right?
yep,
We even sent letters to these people.
yes, we did.
And I won't have you tell me how many people actually called and checked on this. So this isn't new news. It's not like we voted on it and next week it went into effect, right? A year's notice for a business, well, not, you know, 5-year planning, it's notice, okay? And furthermore, if you do anytime we mitigate anything for any one particular person or group's bill, we're invalidating the rate study. And essentially then, if you lowered any of these, or if we
No,
did
I
something
wasn't
with
asking
one
about
rate
lowering.
classification, residential, all electric, whoever, you're having somebody else subsidize it.
I
So,
understand that.
I mean, are you gonna take commercial and say, hey, residents, eat it?
No, I'm not saying that.
No, you're not. So,
Gons, where are we at price-wise with, compared to other providers in these numbers? I mean, if they were gonna go to Case Penal, do we have those numbers?
I don't have the exact numbers, but the structure was designed based on other utilities.
Right, that's what I
So they
figured.
usually have a small, medium, and large.
I mean, I know we can't be that much more outrageous. I mean, it's gotta be, the energy it costs what it costs.
we're still very competitive.
That's what I figured. We're very competitive. So it's not like that we're out of range on anything on these numbers. So,
Okay. So we're just, we're gonna go with,
Residential,
up to 12 months on the, I think you mentioned there were a couple of approaches here for the commercial that were a little different from residential. One was a 12-month window for repayment
yes.
versus 6.
Right. And so that was the short-term payment plan for those that didn't want to go on to the budget bill. So just real quick on commercial. So we're offering them so we're not changing the rules for the equal payment plan for them. Anything on penalties. I just want to be clear so that so when they call or if you want to advise later.
I mean, I would say the penalties thing, we should probably appropriate that too for this, would be my guess.
I'd
Just
agree.
to help, you know,
Yeah.
Okay. So for all electric customers, commercial and residential, we can waive
I know
those penalties.
you're against that?
Okay.
Well, we sent them the letter, right? The whole point of eliminating the
For the
penalties and everything was because we didn't tell these people.
All right.
We
Okay,
didn't give
sorry,
them a
I'm
year to
misunderstanding.
plan for this, but these people got the letter. What,
Okay.
well, it's a valid point.
I mean, do you want 3 years delay? I mean,
What percentage of these commercial customers would that affect on the waiving those fees?
And that I'm not sure. Based on the ones, they were kind of looking at maybe making 2 payments just to absorb that big impact while they adjusted. And so once we say we take a partial payment, then whatever's left remaining will have a 10% penalty. So they haven't made a decision yet. I did tell them we were coming here tonight and that I would bring up commercial businesses as well.
And I get that there's a hit, but the thing is, when you're looking at that number, I don't care what business is, that's a chunk to have to come up with.
I think it's a good partnering opportunity for us.
what if we eliminated the late fee for the bill that has happened, the 2 bills, right? So wipe their late fee.
Okay.
They're still, but it goes forward.
Yeah.
Okay? And we let them have a 13th month payment. They get 1 payment to catch up, to spread out whatever they want to do.
So they get one free get out of jail card and an extra month?
No, I'm just saying, so you'd figure out what your bill's gonna be for the year, and you can put in 1 extra payment throughout the year. Figure that out. Maybe Amy says that's dumb because her system won't do it. And that'll let them spread it out a little more.
And then waive the fee for January, February?
Yes.
Will your system do that, Amy? I love that look.
If that is what the commercial customer asked for, we can do it by payment plan. So what it would be a payment plan, because we would then force them to tell us when that payment would be made.
Yep.
And so then the computer's tracking it,
Okay.
because I don't wanna,
Yeah.
I don't want all my
So do
staff to
what you
march out
said, and
tomorrow.
then, as a good partner, we can
And waive
waive
the
the
first 2.
January, February.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
just because of the large impact, so, okay.
Look at that. You're turning into be a nice guy. Gonna ruin your reputation.
Because I look at the numbers.
I know.
I don't think that will invalidate the rate study.
No, this will be fine because a late fee is never built into your, well, it's not
Right.
designed to be a moneymaker, so losing that doesn't hurt us, and spreading it out at the end of the year, you're still whole, so.
Okay.
So anything else?
Is that it?
I think that's about it. I mean,
Jeez.
energy assessment will be done by the commercial customer.
Anybody in the public can still email us or get a hold of us or whatever.
Or hang out after the meeting. You don't get,
It's not traditional
No.
in this type of meeting.
No.
And that there's not much time, but there's quite a few people who feel
just saying
profoundly
my opinion
affected by
is-
this. Would you allow a few of them to speak if they
I
desire?
think we've already addressed their concerns. I don't believe that there's a need to have we've already heard from several on email. We've heard from several on the phone. I don't think that's a need to have those individuals speak in the meeting because we've already spoken about their specific cases. Am I not correct on that, Amy?
I think so. And I would say to anyone who don't feel like their questions were answered to contact utility billing.
Yes.
Because I think too, it's important that, I think that some of our numbers today, there was a lot of them, but it shows the variance, that every account is different.
Yes.
And so, it's easier for us to look at each individual account and talk to them and see kind of based on what their consumption looks like, what their histories have looked like, what some of these options truly look like on paper, that maybe those calls,
Well, I mean,
Might
the
be
long and
more
short is they
emails
need to
and-
go to utility billing and discuss the cases individually. We have made the decision to work with these customers, these all-electric customers, in every way that we can to mitigate the impact of the rate change. Am I not correct in that?
yes.
Okay, so hearing their individual stories at this point is kind of pointless.
What I think we should do is close this meeting since we're
And
done
then
with
they
what we're
can talk
doing.
to us.
We can still be here.
I'll be
and
happy
we
to-
can talk to whoever wants to talk to us.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Gotta
hear
make a
from
motion.
individuals. Well, we don't have to make a motion,
Well,
this is
let's
a work
do it.
session, so
Be done.
we're gonna close the work session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.